Hey everyone, I hope you are doing incredibly well. Welcome to our first of three live streams with a colleague who is launching and has launched their online course. And Michelle, I first of all, before we even jump into all of this, like I'm just so thankful for you. I'm thankful for our friendship, for all the beautiful things that you are doing with Mindful Soul, your group practice, and then with Syzygy Institute, which is helping therapists integrate IFS and EMDR into their work. And more than anything, like you are honestly one of the most kind and humble like people I've ever met. So and I love like doing live streams like this because I think like seeing you and what you're doing, it gives permission to like folks that, they're just like regular folks, to launch their courses. So thank you for being here.
Aw, thank you so much, Melvin. And the feeling is so mutual. I absolutely adore you and everything that you do. And humble is like the number one word that I use to describe you. So, getting any compliments from you means a lot. And it's just great to be here, especially since you and I first met on a podcast like a decade ago. So I feel
That's
like,
right.
oh my gosh, it's like kind of a full circle moment.
Oh my gosh, I know. It is crazy how time flies. And uh yeah, absolutely. For those of you guys that are tuning in live, first thank you so much for doing that. We want to use the next 45 minutes or so just to serve you well. When we do these live streams, I always tell folks like please share the good, the bad, the hard of online course building because my whole thing is it's not I think one of the most important things is that we give a realistic perspective, right? Like courses and doing trainings and all these things are amazing. And yet they come with their own challenges. And so I'm grateful that, we get to talk about the beautiful work that you're doing at Syzygy and all of that stuff. So, and you guys that are tuning into the live stream again, we want to make this dynamic. So feel free to leave a comment either on LinkedIn or on YouTube where you're seeing this live stream. I'll be able to see your comments kind of pop up and then we'll pop you up and also let us know where you're joining us from. It's always fun to see like other where folks are joining from. Michelle, I had sent you some questions, but I thought we could start here, which is, I got licensed in 2012 as a psychologist. I think launching an online course is like, I don't know, it was like the furthest thing from me. When I thought about like teaching, my only model was perhaps teaching at a community college or a university or a one-off, maybe doing some trainings, but I don't know, it's not exactly the norm, I think, for therapists to think about launching an online course. What made you start thinking about it?
Hmm. I feel like I agree with you on all of that. Like it was never in my vision of what I would be doing as a social worker. That's for sure. And I feel like it's something that because I'm sort of entrepreneurial minded, like I would see people spheres of my brain would start thinking about it. But the actual thought of like executing it
Mhm.
seemed really impossible. Um, and I was doing trainings with before COVID. I was doing these IFS and EMDR trainings with my now co-founder Bruce Hersey, who was a dear mentor of mine. Um, and COVID really changed the game. We were doing these in-person trainings, and all of a sudden we had to take the show on the road, on online. And so that really catapulted me into a sphere of having to figure out a lot of aspects to running virtual trainings, creating courses. So I definitely don't have it all figured out yet, but that's kind of how I arrived here and into this space, I think.
Yeah. First, thank you so much for even sharing that part of it. As you were talking about the COVID and how that shifted stuff and having to do Zoom calls, right? I feel like what I notice is like, and again, maybe this is even to the general population, but definitely among therapists, there's a segment of us that see these kind of like things where are chaotic and we sort of pivot fast. And there are others who get crippled. And I'm actually probably like naturally in the latter camp, of like I analyze it, then I get overwhelmed, all of that. How do you think for you, you were able to like make that pivot like mentally to be like, hey, like we can't do these trainings, like instead of being like, okay, I guess we gotta like, shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I do think part of it's my personality. Like, I think I am the type of person in a crisis that goes into like management mode, directive
Mm,
mode. I wouldn't say that that leadership came to me easily. I would not describe myself in
mm,
that way, growing up or anything like that. But I do think that owning a group practice helped me hone those skills of like, when there's a fire, somebody's got to do something about it.
mm,
And so I have this inclination towards like figuring things out, executing strategy. I'm very process oriented. And
mm.
so I feel like even in my household, I have like processes for things. My kids are like, okay, mom, we get the, we get the process. Like you want us to do it in this way. But so it's definitely become a part of like just how I operate.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit, that was actually like, I mean, it was really scary. And I had all these people, in my group practice depending on me
Mm,
who were fee for service. And I was like, we need to do something or people are gonna lose their livelihoods. So
mm,
that made a lot of, I kind of just jumped into, all right, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? How
mm,
are we going to execute it? How are we going to organize it? Like that's kind of how my brain works. And so I think with the trainings with Bruce, he had this brilliant training that he was
mm,
doing. And I still remember having like a little brainstorm session on Zoom. I was like in my family's cabin in Maine in this like teeny little shoebox of a bedroom that I have up there, and we're like figuring it out. I'm like, all
mm,
right, well, we can do it this way and we can do Zoom. And we were playing around with the Zoom settings and like learning how to do it. And that trickled into this business, forming this
mm,
business. And again, figuring out like how do we make this work, and not lose the connection that I think is, at least for us, for our live trainings, the connection piece is so crucial.
mm.
Um, and so it was really important that we were able to not just take it online, but also figure out ways to ensure that there was a lot of connection happening, for our live workshops.
Yeah, that's like it's so well. I love just the way y'all thought it through, and I think the thing I really like is because I think this is a real fear that it's something I know I've navigated, which is how do you maintain that sense of connection when things are either taught in a digital format or even done in a kind of a presentation format. And personally, I feel like because of our own clinical training, right? Like, and seeing sort of the therapeutic relationship and the power of connection, right? Like that emphasis or that thought of like, okay, how do we preserve that? Like, that's usually, I think it's so cool that that's like one of the first questions that y'all thought about. I have a random question for you. So, you guys were doing the live trainings, but then, and that sense of connection was there. But then I know, one of the things that you had joined our mastermind because you were like, hey, I want to take this into like a digital format. What was the thought process behind that? Because I think there could be this thought of like, why mess up what's already working, you know?
Yeah. Um, so that's kind of interesting also because um, so Bruce had created a couple digital courses.
Mm,
And he actually was kind of one of the first, I mean, he really was one of the first people integrating these two therapy modalities
mm,
anyway in a structured, um, really understandable way.
mm,
And so he was already, kind of creating these courses and putting them out there. But we've also noticed that the market for online courses has gotten a lot
mm,
there's a lot more people at the party now,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
so we have a couple of his courses already, on our website. Um, and so what I think I needed to figure out, and I'm still kind of figuring out, and I think this kind of goes with this idea of like, as business owners, I feel like we're always building the plane while flying it, right?
Right.
Like, okay, we have these courses,
Yeah.
we have a couple, the community wants more. Like, our
Mm,
community wants more courses. They're coming through our training program,
mm,
which takes them through a sequence of three very high touch, connected trainings. And they're like, okay, but now I want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to
mm,
learn more. So there's like a hunger for more content, more learning. But there seemed to be a gap between that need and actually purchases of the
mm,
digital courses. And so it really has me thinking about um, all of the other pieces that are also very intimidating to me as an online course creator,
mm,
is like the marketing piece, the how do we let people know about these
mm,
courses? How do we help our community connect to the courses? What else does the community want?
mm,
So I can be thoughtful about the other courses that we hope to create and add to that course library. And so, we have a certification program. People they want more courses so that when it comes up to get recertified, they can say, yeah, I did more.
mm,
So that's sort of where we're at with it right now. um, I think when I started the mastermind, I had these like puzzle pieces of this business plan,
mm,
and there were some like gaps in it that I couldn't quite figure out how to put them together.
mm,
um, and I think over the course of our time together in this mastermind, I've really started to, which my brain loves, because again, systems, processes,
mm,
organization, like my brain wants it all to work. It's starting to all click,
mm,
these different pieces and these different aspects of it. It's like I already had down, we as a business, I think, had down, and I really credit Bruce to a lot of this and his vision, but we had down like staying connected because we brought on
mm.
really good people to help us with our trainings. And so when you've got, in the IFS world, we call it self energy. When you've got a lot of self energy, even if it's in a virtual space, the connection will happen, like the good stuff will happen.
Mm,
And I do think that we can still convey some of that even in a recorded course.
yeah.
But how do I deliver it? And how do I get our community interested in that? And also have a bit of an exchange with our community about what else they want.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I hope
no,
that
absolutely.
I
It's
think I got a
well,
little lost
no,
there.
no, no. I think it's fantastic. Like, I think what I hear in that is this is something, I feel like even in our mastermind, we talk about so early on, right? Like creating like a round table of advisors or whatever it is, right? Like always getting feedback from the students who are actually going to be purchasing the course or in front of or from people that are in front of those ideal students, right? And I think the way you guys are approaching is so thoughtful because it's not like, hey, let's build the training and now let's add a digital course. Like it's more like, okay, this is what folks are asking. What does that like in a sustainable way, in a pace way look like for us? Um, it also reminded me of remember in the mastermind, we spent that one workshop like thinking about our value, like course value ladder. Um,
Yeah.
do you remember, can you kind of guide folks through that, like even from what you remember, like the value ladder concept, and then how you were thinking about it related to like what you guys are doing at Syzygy?
I will do my best, but I will not be able to I won't be able to be quizzed on this. Um, yeah, so the value ladder is sort of like identifying these different products or services that you're offering, higher, uh, more in-depth products versus things that might be free content, right? Sort of the, am I getting it right, Mel?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
making sure
yeah.
I'm passing the test here.
Yo,
Um, because
you're flying with flying colors here.
that particular workshop actually was probably the one that had so many light bulbs going off for me,
Mm,
because I was like, I don't think I really had a lot of clarity around our offerings, or even my offerings individually, because as an offshoot to both my businesses, I do
yeah.
some consultation. My trainers do consultation. Bruce does some of his own consultation. So it's like we have consultation services, we have our high quality 2 day experiential live workshops, we have some in person stuff. Where do these digital courses fit?
Mm,
Also in the picture of the certification. So what I sort of realized is that there's people who are interested in IFS Informed EMDR, but for whatever reason aren't quite ready to take a full course, or maybe the affordability of it is a barrier, and so there, and I feel like, and I know this is true also in the IFS community, there's a lot of self learning going on
mm,
where people are just trying to learn these modalities and apply them through a lot of self learning. A lot of IFS folks who are like waiting to get into IFS trainings, they're seeing an IFS therapist, they're
mm,
joining other platforms that are offering IFS trainings. We have an IFS training, so they're finding that knowledge somewhere else. So I recognized that on one end of our ladder, we have folks that haven't come to our training program yet, but
mm,
they're interested. And so, what can we offer those folks that's sort of like an introduction, an overview? And we had a couple of these courses already
mm,
that Bruce had created. There's one that of he and I doing, it's maybe like an hour and a half. So there's a few of those
mm,
that are available. And then the other end is, so once somebody's, it's almost like they go up the ladder. They've gone through the
mm,
training program. They've gone to like the higher priced items or the more high touch items, but now they still want a little bit more. So it's like, how can they come almost down a couple rungs, and that there's still something for them? How do I
mm,
keep them on the ladder, right?
yeah.
Or keep them in a funnel? And so that's really what I'm aiming for
Mm,
now, is like, we have these sort of introductory, lower priced webinars that they can
mm,
purchase. Can we add to our library for the folks who have done the training program, who might, they really love it, they're applying it, they want deeper content, or more intricacy in the skill. And so can we start putting together longer recorded courses
mm,
that also have continuing education credits, right? So a 6 hour or an 8 hour, or maybe like a little series, like things
mm.
like that, to add to their own knowledge base about IFS Informed EMDR.
Yeah, that's so cool to like see you describe it this way. And I think the premise of it is, something I heard like a couple of years ago, which is basically that it's harder, it's much easier to keep somebody who has purchased from you to like to encourage them to take another offering than it is to get a brand new student, right? And so this value ladder concept is like seeing your core student, where are they on that journey? And it's not like every student's going to go progressively up the ladder where they like download something and then buy a low cost. Sometimes folks may just buy the live training, right? But I think that general sort of framework, I think is it's a cool one. And I think we talk a lot about in our mastermind also. It's not it's not like grow, 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 scale, scale, scale. Like it's like sustainable growth, right? Like how do you, because I think, and I know we talk a lot about this idea of like, what if you build a successful practice and you take that same mindset to course building, which is fantastic, but then there's also this pressure to keep growing, and then you like bypass actually what your enough is and what success looks like for you and all of those questions. And so um yeah uh yeah, like what do you remember from those conversations? Like what
Yeah.
resonated?
I mean, that's honestly probably one of the bigger reasons
Mm,
why I opted to learn about this in your mastermind. Because I'm a recovering overachiever.
mhm,
And um, and I've done a lot of work on that in my own IFS therapy, by the way. Just working with those parts of me that build and build and build. And what's enough and what's behind that? Like, why am I? Why? Where's that coming from? Like, what is it that how am I giving myself? Um, how was I giving myself some sense of like safety in that?
mm,
And definitely hitting, I've been a group practice owner for just about 10 years. So it's like hitting different spots of burnout, exhaustion, and oh, okay, now I'm starting another business and
mm,
what's my plan here? And so it's something, with Syzygy Institute, which we just had our third birthday. I think I've tried to be really aware and mindful of slow growth is
mm,
fine. Um, I think we're doing wonderfully already. Um, I also have concerns, and maybe because I've learned from group practice
mm,
ownership, like bigger isn't necessarily better.
mm,
More people isn't necessarily better. We have wonderful people connected to Syzygy as our staff, our training staff, and so really pacing the growth
mm,
so that it does fit in my life. I also have 3 kids.
mm,
I have 2 teenagers and an elementary school student.
mm,
So my personal life is nonstop. Like I'm an Uber driver in my free time. We can't wait for the oldest to get his license.
mm,
Most people are like, you don't, yeah, you're going to be worried all the time, and I'm like, I'm too busy to be worried all the time.
mm,
It
right,
needs to drive.
yeah,
But I think, like just recognizing like we can have a deep impact, and
mm,
that's great. And we can, and I feel also like when I'm going at a pace that works for me, I actually feel like my heart's in it more.
mm,
Like I'm able to keep the passion, because I've learned with the group practice that like rapid growth throws me into like a burnout. And when I get
mm,
burnt out, I get disconnected from my passion.
mm,
So I think like having this kind of slow and steady pace and actually being okay with it, which is really key, because I can know that this is the best way to do it. But that's different than knowing it, right?
yeah,
And that's why like our conversations are so helpful to me, because when I joined the mastermind group, I was, in my Michelle workaholic brain, it's like, yeah, I can whip out a course in like 6 months. And
mm,
like that is totally not what's happened. And
mm,
I'm actually really okay with that. Like
mm,
I feel like older iterations of myself would have been like, oh, I can't believe I joined this mastermind and I haven't done all the millions of things I want
mm,
to do yet. But my vision is so much clearer. Like the clarity I have around the different pieces is really clear. And so there's a calmness in this pace that also gives me like some space to breathe, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like so well said. I think, I feel like broadly, most of us are either parents, caregiving, like doing course building and some other like major life thing. And I think one of the really nice things, and we talk about that because I think one of the nice things about that is just to be like, I don't know, like not to feel shamed, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not able to like build at some pace. I don't know, because maybe you've got a parent that has a terminal illness, right? And yes, like you want to build your course, but let's also figure out like what does like pace growth look like for you, because you may have to take them to doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And I think that's like one of my most favorite things is we we all join this mastermind with the intent to create a course, but we talk about like way bigger life stuff,
Yeah.
and how that like aligns with our course creation journey, right? Because you're absolutely right. Like, as a recovering workaholic too, it's like left to my own vices, I'll just go build all these different things, not thinking about like the third or fourth like ripple effects of, of this
Yeah.
and the burnout and all of that, right? So,
It's
um,
so easy to slide into that.
yeah.
And I do appreciate our conversations in the group because, I've been in other groups where there's like a whole bunch of like real big go-getters. Like, and I'm
Mm,
not saying our group isn't go-getters. They're all like, I mean, they're all like super amazing people who are doing like really incredible things, but the vibe is not this like pressure, push, push, push vibe. And it's more like, yeah, we're all kind of wrestling with that inclination or influence to push, but also like kind of just being where we are right now, even if it's like messy and confusing,
mhm,
whatever thing we're trying to figure out related to our course, that's like very reassuring.
mm,
When I'm in groups with a lot of people that are pushing, like again, like me 10 years ago, that would have like had me stressed. It would have
mm,
had me pushing. It would have had me like trying to make sure, like, am I doing enough? And now I'm almost like allergic to that now. I'm like, listen, we
mm,
don't need to push. Like, like we're just gonna be right here in the step that we're at, and we're gonna figure out this step, and that's okay.
yeah.
And I think that vibe makes the group feel really supportive and not pressured or competitive in any kind of way. It's just a really nice vibe to be around.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all worked, I think, collectively to create that because I think most of us have been on the other side of it, right? Have built something successful, but it's come at a cost, usually to like either relationships or health or something. And we are like keenly aware of like if we don't curtail our own ambition and pace it, like that's actually where our healing and ultimately like success also looks like, Um,
Yeah.
what was the biggest fear that you had about launching an online course?
Oh, I think that this is just like I think there's just a fear around like the vulnerability
Mm,
of creating something and putting it out there. It's funny, my 10-year-old is in the middle of tryouts
mm,
for her school play. I know,
yeah.
like super adorable.
Oh,
And so I've been like, what, she's at home and she's practicing and practicing and practicing. And, she's singing in front of all these other kids and like when I was that age, I was so shy, and, like,
mm,
even when I did, like, school plays in high school, like, I was never the girl trying out for the lead, like, I was
mm.
always like, "I'll be in the ensemble," and I'd be back there supporting everybody else, like,
Mm,
I'm a good ensemble character, um, and here my to use a phrase from my teenagers, here my 10-year-old is, like, main character energy, right? Like, she's, like, out there and, like, and so, like, I think about that sometimes because she has so much courage,
mm,
um, and, like, isn't that what this takes, at
yeah,
least for me, because the fear is, like, yeah, like, creating something that nobody likes or criticizes or, bombs,
yeah,
right? I think that's really the fear. I think there's other obstacles that have gotten
mhm,
in my way or, like, slowed me down or, like, kept me from pursuing this sooner. Those are obstacles, not fears. I think the fear is really just the vulnerability of it,
yeah.
you know?
Um, Thank you for being honest and open about that. For those of you guys that are tuning in live and will watch this replay, feel free to like leave some comments for us. Again, we want to make this super interactive. Let us know where you're coming from. Let us know in the comments like what's resonating, if it's something that you've struggled with. Um, the one thing and I've shared this with y'all, like I struggle with that same like fear of judgment and criticism, right? And I think, for me, I got licensed in 2012 as a psychologist and I launched my podcasting course in 2015. So the thing I was just like, yeah, okay, like who are you 3 years into getting licensed to be doing like, and 6 months after you started your own podcast to be doing a podcasting course. And uh, I feel like, so there's a couple of thoughts that I've come to realize, and I'd love to like hear your thoughts on this. One, I do feel like when you put yourself out there and quote unquote, like when you're in the arena, the nature of it is I think there's always going to be a segment of the population that is going to be like critical, right?
Yeah.
And usually it's not about us. It's usually like their own like, you know, they wanted to do something, they were not able to achieve it, whatever it is, right? Um, but it can feel like really personal. Um, the other thing I have come to realize is I feel like the folks that have the biggest fears around like showing up and they don't feel like they're an expert, they're often the ones that have the most depth and the ones that actually need to share their message the most because they have both this like knowledge, but this incredible groundedness and humility, right? To be like, yeah, there's stuff I don't know, but I'm gonna just put this out there, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's so true. Like when like for someone like me, like I've already run through all like all the things I'm afraid of people judging me for. Like I've most likely already ran through a lot of those scenarios, right? So like there is just like I think I don't know, there's just a by the time we put ourselves out there and do it, like our egos are pretty in check, I feel
Mm,
like. A
mm,
lot like, our egos are in check. We're the type of people who check our egos
yeah,
often,
yeah,
probably
yeah,
too much. My best friend is always like, "You need to pat yourself on the back more," So, like, I think you're right in that regard, and, like, as I'm thinking about the other members, of our mastermind group, I mean, what, like, an incredible group of people, and they are grounded,
mm,
grounded energy, humble, and have a lot to offer. And, it's nice to be in a space like that, and to feel so comfortable in that space, right? And
yes,
yeah, all of them I feel like are experts,
yeah,
even though most of them have the same fears about me, about like, well, I'm not the expert. Who wants to watch something that I'm making,
yeah.
So it's yeah,
It is
it's
really
definitely
interesting.
something that resonates with all of us, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I
Yeah.
think by the way, Joanne had some comments. She
What
said,
are you
"Hey,
doing?
Joanne, great to see you." Sorry, the looks like the text is not quite working, but she said, "I really agree with the approach of taking our time, being mindful about balancing in the rest of our life. It makes the journey so much more enjoyable." I think that is like spot on. Um, you know, I think one really unique thing about the mastermind is we meet weekly, right? And so over a span of a year, you get to really know folks. And I think one of the cool things with what you said is people get to see you for how like they see you, and sometimes you don't see yourself that way, but when
Yeah.
people are like pouring into you and saying like, Michelle, like you can totally do this, you do realize you've done this and this, so you're like, it's kind of this like humble reality check of, oh yeah, like I guess I can do it and still be myself, you know? So
Yeah. That's definitely true.
yeah,
Yeah, I think the weekly, um, it also just keeps you kind of, like, in it, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I feel like as entrepreneurs, we can, like, drift from project to project, and, like, this has really helped me stay in it.
yes,
So, I think that that's really good too.
yeah, absolutely. um what made you sign up for our mastermind?
Oh, now I have to think, like, what was I mean, obviously, I was like, "It's Melvin, so I have to do I wanna do it because it's Melvin." Yeah, I mean, I think it was again, I was trying to solve this problem of, like, this gap between, our digital courses and our live courses, and I'm someone who just, I like to really understand something, like, I'm
Mm,
not a wing it type of person, so and I've been this way my professional life, like, I'm very inclined to take trainings, join groups, to learn, and, like,
mm,
and I think too, having been a business owner already for so long in the group practice sphere, you start to really evaluate, like, the different possibilities,
mm,
that are out there, and so, because there's like there's so the coaching space is so saturated. There's so many
Mhm.
options. There's so many things you can do. There's so many coaching programs. I just I think I already had like just an inherent trust in you because I was listening to your podcasts like 10 years ago when I
Mhm.
was building my group practice and learning about private practice. And the timing just was fitting. You and I had our like one-to-one call, and even like after I got off the phone with you, and like kind of like talked out my ideas with you and told you, because at the time my ideas were like I was all over the place. Like I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know, like I didn't have the vision I do now. I don't even think I understood the problem I was trying to figure out for
Mhm.
myself. Like it was kind of um like a muddled bunch of thoughts in my head. I think after we talked, I felt really like, I think that the word that comes to mind is like supported. Like I
Mhm.
felt like, okay, I'm not quite sure what I need to do, and I'm not quite sure what has to happen next, but I feel like if I do this, I'm gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
Um, and I knew that I know from history that having a group of people to learn together is what really helps me grow, even though I am a total introvert. And I'm also like hyper independent. Having that, I knew I needed that support network. And I really trusted a lot of your expertise. And because I think that you just kind of fuel integrity into like everything I've ever seen you do. So I knew that it was going to be a very like intentional, thoughtful type of experience. And that felt, again, as the recovering overachiever workaholic that I am, it felt like this is the type of peace and support
Mhm.
that my system needs in order to do this without completely spinning out and burnout.
Yeah.
you know, taking on this learning and um, hopefully some more products.
Mhm.
It just felt like a natural pathway for me. That was kind of a long answer. Sorry about
No,
that.
it was a great answer, and we're so grateful you're a part of it. I think the reason you alluded to these like one-on-one calls, and I know this isn't like the scalable thing, but like we literally do. You will sit down with me, like if you're interested in our mastermind, and we will do like a 45-minute call, just for me to get to know you. And part of that is because we cap our mastermind at 15. And so we really want like 15 therapists who are both like passionate about their course, but I'm like really trying to figure out like who are the right 15 that when we all come together that we can create something where we're all helping each other and supporting each other, and by being together we're able to like uplift one another and help each of us to get to levels that individually we wouldn't be able to get to. And yeah, and I'm just so thankful that you're a part of it. Take us like inside the mastermind. Like, I know we do a bunch of stuff. So, one week we are doing teaching workshops and others are fuzzy seats, and we're doing mindset and course growth and
Yeah.
scaling, all of that. Like,
Well,
tell us,
I
yeah.
love the diversity of it
Mm,
because, yeah, I really like the diversity of it. I know that some of the earlier sessions when I
mm,
first joined, when everything was kind of muddled and I didn't really have a clear vision, um, even just like the mindset stuff was helpful to kind of like almost like working through how I was relating to my businesses.
mm,
Um, and that was a really important, it's hard to really describe. But when you own two businesses, it's kind of like having multiple children.
mm,
And I was definitely like having a little bit of push pull between them and like, where do I find the time? And it just gave me a little bit of a reset that I needed. So that mental work is just as important as
mm,
the sessions where we're sitting down and we're going through like technical things. Like the conversation of our group at the moment has, for me, has been like, what kind of lighting do we use and what kind of camera and what does your background look like? And like, so we're having like all these technical conversation, but we're also having these sessions that focus on some of the mental pieces. And I think that's really key, is like kind of balancing the mental, emotional, and technical aspects of course creation. having that blend makes sure that we're kind of, I think that the group is being tended to in a holistic way,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
know Joanne is joining us. Joanne, feel free to, if you get a second, leave some comments. Again, what your experience has been. And as y'all are also tuning in, watching the replay, feel free to leave questions and thoughts. Would love to, like, again, learn and hear from you. Uh, yeah, I think, with the mastermind, we do, if we think about like one month, right? Two of those are teaching workshops, and we do something unique in that we teach the content live. We record everything, so you can always, in case you need to miss it for some reason or need to watch the replay, that's available. But we also, Michelle alluded to this, we do these hours called mindset hours, and basically we tackle something that is a common struggle for a therapist who is transitioning from clinician to like course creator, right? So who am I to be like launching an online course, or what if people like judge me, or and I think by tackling these real questions, like it's almost like that whole adage like of bringing things to the light, right? And they don't seem as big, but when you're also with other people who are like, oh gosh, I struggle with that as well. It just, there's something powerful to be like, oh wait, there's other people that deal with it because you look so successful and put together. Um, yeah. So, um, yeah, absolutely. Joanne said, learning style and knowing ourselves is crucial. I've also benefited from peer support and working alongside others. Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Like, if you're someone that, like, you do really well with accountability and just like being with other, like, uplifting, smart, innovative folks, I think it's like, it's a good fit and something you should definitely consider. Um, I've
Can
got
I
like,
add? Let
yeah,
me
of
just add
course, of course, of
something about
course.
so what I want to say about that too is there's also, so because of the vibe of the group, there's also times where, like I get really consumed with another project. And so I'm still clicked in, I'm attending the group, I'm seeing what everybody's doing. But because the vibe is so friendly and welcoming, I also don't feel like bad if I'm
Mm,
behind. Like you know what I mean? So I feel like that's another piece. It's like, it's not a harsh environment. If you end up like, you're in it for the long haul. You're not in it for just 3 weeks. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like it's not a short-term kind of thing. So, things happen. Like sometimes things happen in our families, or you have, you know what I mean? Like, so I still will show up, right? Like I just keep showing up, even if it's a week where maybe my group practice has a lot going on, and I
Mm,
have to kind of put this project aside for a moment because I'm always kind of prioritizing the different things that
mm,
are on my list, right? But it keeps me locked in. Like it just keeps it clicked in without like that guilt of like, oh, I haven't been doing as much as that person. Like it
mm.
just, you know what I mean? So it's accountability, but it's like kind accountability.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good way of putting it. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's so much to, I don't know, for me, like, I thought like course creation was about like getting out of the gate fast and doing these like crazy launches and this, that, because that's what we see in the online space, right?
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
like, I mean, you've been a group practice owner for 10 years. I've run STC for 10 years. Course creator for 10 years. Like, it's just, but I think, like, I don't know, the more sustainable thing is in these like quiet sort of paced, way of like, I know this is where I'm going, and it's okay. Like, I pace myself and I say like, okay, how did this step feel? Is this, if I continue to go down this, is this what I want? And I think just again, I think the cool thing also of having therapists doing this together is like generally like insightful and thoughtful about these things. So it's like there's some guardrails on the course building and on the ambition, which is like really cool, you know.
Yeah.
um I have like, we have like 2 minutes, so maybe I'll just kind of ask this final one, and we'll kind of pop in syzygy here, and I'll show y'all inside here. So you guys can definitely check out the website, which is at syzygyinstitute.com. SYZYGY is syzygy, and a bunch of training, especially if you are interested in IFS-Informed EMDR, they do amazing work, and yeah, trainings, and you can register here for next trainings and all of the stuff that they're putting out there. I also, I guess the last question, Michelle, I had for you is, and we'll put links to everything in the comments, so you
Well,
guys can check out Michelle's work and what they're up to. What's something encouraging you would share with a colleague who's watching and thinking about launching an online course, but is like torn about it?
oh, I think there's something you say all the time. Get going, then get good. Is that
Mm.
the
Yeah,
expression you use a
yeah.
lot?
Get going,
Uh,
get good, then get smart.
yes, yes, I love that. And I think that like just get going. Just dip your toe in. Um, take like you may have a million ideas, and maybe that's the first thing is like joining the group and figuring out are your ideas good ideas? Like just start there. Um, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to research every single thing. Just get going. I think
Yeah,
that's really what I needed. I needed to take it from this like, you know, little folder in my brain and just take it out, put it on the table and start sifting through all the the things, and it starts to take shape. So I
yeah.
say go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many clinicians, like, I feel like every clinician has a course inside of them, but like, I think one broad pattern that I see is, I think there's definitely, I think because we think so deeply about stuff, I think it's so easy to get stuck in that, like, here's what it should look like. Okay, I'm not quite ready because, like, this has got to get tweaked, or this thing's got to get taken care of first. And I think the reality is, like, there's never like a quote unquote perfect time. But I think if you sort of think of it more as like, okay, this is where I want to go. And as long as I feel almost like you orient like almost like a compass, like,
Yeah.
uh, I think that's probably like a better perspective on it. So Michelle, I am so thankful for you. Thankful just for all the wonderful stuff you and Bruce are doing with Syzygy. And I'm grateful for our friendship. If you guys were
Mm.
able to join live, thank you. I know how busy our lives are. And so thank you for doing that. And then if you guys are, again, watching the replay at a later time, thank you for doing that as well. We hope that this has just been incredible for you. If you look in the comments section of this live stream on YouTube, there's links to Syzygy and a bunch of other stuff to get started. And if you are interested in checking out our mastermind, that's over at sellingthecouch.com/mastermind. We launch twice a year. And we're currently right now in our spring 25 launch window. I think we have 7 folks confirmed. And so we're, about halfway there. But I'm excited for this next group. And the other cool thing is, we invite folks like Michelle who are a little bit further along in the journey to come back to the group and just kind of share the learnings that they've learned, which then makes, it's a cool experience all the way around. So, Michelle, thank you again. And everyone, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.